I hope you're enjoying your Christmas season. This is such a special time of year for all of us in the church. I am going to be doing a devotional on Revelation chapter 6, and I'll just start by reading what is in my Bible in the commentary section. This is about judgment. Christ sets in motion events that will bring about the end of human history. That's dire. That sounds a little scary, maybe produces a little anxiety when you read that. It's a lot to take in. The thing that I find striking is that we are in the Christmas season when we find hope in the birth of Christ, because this is the beginning of so many things that are put into play about the gift that is given to us through his death, which has been prophesied about by prophets in the Old Testament. They talk about a king that would come that would save the world. And I think it's important to remember that when we read through Revelation, particularly in this chapter. There's a lot here, and it can be difficult to understand. There are some differences of opinion from different commentaries, and I think it's important to use a commentary when you're reading through Revelation. I think the study guide that we have is also a great tool and very helpful, the one that was developed at Fremont by a couple of our members. So consider using that too as you're reading through. But again, as you're reading through and you're trying to figure this out, remember how Christ has come alongside you in your own trials, or how someone has shared their own personal testimony of a difficult time and how Christ was there through that strife, through that difficult time. So when you read about the conflict that we know, the conflict that's already happened, but the conflict that we know that is going to occur as he continues to fulfill his prophecy, there is going to be chaos and there is going to be strife, but there has been chaos and strife in our own lives that Christ has seen us through, and it's so important to remember that. I have been also looking at a commentary by Darrell Johnson. Many of you know him and have read many of his books, and they're wonderful. But he has one called Discipleship on the Edge, and this is a book about, on the book of Revelation. And regarding chapter 6, he says, "It is at this point, at the breaking of the 7 seals, that most people stop reading Revelation, and that most pastors stop preaching on Revelation, and understandably so. What do all the symbols and images mean? There's a lot of work that needs to be done in understanding the interpretation, because it does get more difficult here." But he also says, and here the work of living the interpretation gets much more difficult, not because the message is so complicated, but because it is so spiritually demanding. It turns out, as many commentators argue, the breaking of the 7 seals is part of Revelation that best explains what is going on in our world. So my takeaway is that I want to lean into Christ. I want to lean into my relationship with him, into the Word and into prayer, so that I can be better prepared, continue to be prepared, but for any trials that come along. But to understand, to have the wisdom that he gives us through his Word and through prayer, to understand what he's trying to share, what the message is here in Revelation. And I do think that it does kind of go along with this season. I have to say, initially I was teasing Dave Pack about doing Revelation at Christmas time, but when you think about a child is born to be the king of the world, and we have all these Christmas songs that we sing of his praise and give thanks for what he is going to do, and what he continues to do in chapter 6 and throughout the book of Revelation. So I just challenge you to take time to pray, but also to use commentaries along with this. I think it really is important to read this with some understanding historically and what some of the scholars are saying that the symbols mean. And I hope that you find that it is rewarding and enriching and not just anxiety producing, because we know that in the midst of all this, Christ has us and he loves us deeply, and he will continue to care for his people. Take care.